Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your location. Welcome to webinar's Woven Foundational Features Review. We do have an agenda for today's call. Let's see. Sorry about that. So we're going to do just a kind of quick main areas to Woven on desktop where things live. And then we'll talk about Woven's foundational features, what those are, and a little bit about how we use them. For today's call, we're just going to be looking at desktop. A lot of these features that we look at are also available or usable on the mobile apps. There's one for iOS and Android. But for management, we recommend desktop experience, and so that's where we'll be living today. When we first log in, we see our today's overview. If we have access to multiple locations, we can click the at locations and see if there's anything specific for those locations. Depending upon additional features that you may have adopted, you're going to see celebrations. If we click the little arrow, so we have work anniversaries or birthdays will show up here. For birthdays, we don't show age. We just show month and day that is the birthday, but we don't show how old anybody is. By your name, you can click the little down caret. This is where we can access account settings for the account, wide settings. I can also go into my account, which is where I, as an individual user, can update my profile image if we allow those, change my password, tweak some of my own notification settings. I can also log out from there as well. On the left, we have the navigation bar. You can minimize it. So like today, I'm on my laptop screen. I like to keep that minimized. We can leave it up for a little bit. Report center, tasks, management. This is where we'll be today. We can go into team members or locations, report center, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. So now to actually talk about some of those features, right? We talked about the home page, the navigation bar, some of those things. The first of the Woven foundational features is team members. We have to get your team members into Woven in order to do really anything, right? If we want to look at schedules or communication tools, the team members first have to get into Woven. So we'll look at how do we add, remove, or even delete, and why we would delete versus terminate team members, how we review their information, how we send them password reset emails as well. And we'll even touch on the team member settings. So underneath management, I'm going to go to team members. And based upon my position, my security role, locations I'm affiliated with, I'm going to see a roster here of team members. If you want to add a new team member, there is an add button, green add button there in the corner. We're going to give it a first name. What's my position? So your position most closely aligns with your job title. Right? It's what you do at the location. So we're just going to, we have a list here. And then what's a team member's primary location? Team members have to have at least one primary or just one primary location. They can have access to additional. We'll look at how we do that. And what's their hire date? Hit next. This is where we add their email address. This is where we will send communications. Should they be allowed to log in? Yes, they should be allowed to log in. What's their security role? So their role is similar to their position, but their role determines what they are allowed to do in Woven, right? Your owners, your managers will have higher access levels than your team members, for example. And then we show here what their temporary password is. I always recommend sending this to the team member, not to yourself. Hit next. If you have adopted Woven's e-sign or onboarding tools, you'll see this. Just go ahead and turn that off for now. Confirm that all of the information here is correct. we go ahead and create the new team member record. The team member will receive an email welcoming them to Woven. It will have their username, which will be by default their email address, as well as their temporary password so that they can log in and then change their temporary password to something else. If we click on a team member's name from this list, we will be taken exactly where we just were. So if I click on a team member, right, this is exactly where we are after we add a team member. So a lot of different things here depending upon your organization's needs. Things like compliance. So we see this used a lot in the spa and salon space where we have to track team members' license or an insurance background checks, employment verification. We can click on, we can review, right? This one expired. We can add new ones. We can also turn on settings to request the team member provide that information for us. Here on the left, underneath the team member, we see that they are active. They are allowed to use Woven. They have not installed the mobile app, so I can send a team member a reminder to install the mobile app if we'd like. And once they have installed the mobile app, we'll even see here if they have allowed Woven to send them push notifications or not. For current customers, if you have team members that are saying that they're not getting push notifications, this is a great thing to go look at as kind of a first step troubleshooting. On the details tab, we have very similar information, just kind of spread out a little bit. We can update first name, last names if we need to. We can change the team member's position. So if they get promoted or demoted, we can make that update. Again, we can update their background check, license, insurance from here. Contact information, we can verify their email address. So this is another place to look if team members say they didn't get the welcome email or they're not getting their, if they're having password reset problems, we want to make sure that this is the correct email address, that it's going to the correct place. Demographics, emergency contact, just places where we can store information about our team members. None of this is required though. So if we want to have the birthday celebrations on the home screen, we can add their birth date here. For some of your team members who do not want their birthday celebrated for any reason, we can opt them out. So even if Woven has their birthday information, we will not display a celebration for their birthday. On the Access tab, we see that this team member is allowed to log in. We see what their username is, so it matches their email address. And we see what their security role is, right? What are they allowed to do in Woven? Again, as they are promoted or demoted, we can update their security role. There's also a reset password button here. So this is where if team members are having difficulties, you can push them a new temporary password. Woven's telling you here what their email address is, so this is where it's going to go, so we can confirm that that's correct. We can let the team member know that this is what their username is. And then if we go ahead and hit reset, this is going to send them that temporary password. On the locations tab, we see which locations this team member has access to. We can even give them more or less access if we need to. There is a little filter here, so you can, if you have lots of locations, you can see, okay, Alan has access to just these 3 locations. You can also change team member's primary location if need be. Documents. This is a place where you can store documents for team members. Within foundational features, secure docs and unsecure docs are both part of that set. Secure docs has a separate role permission to enable access to secure docs. Our recommendation is that we use secure docs for storing anything that has team members' personal identification information. So social security, driver's license numbers. We would want to keep those locked down a little bit more underneath secure docs. Notes. This is just a place where we can store notes about team members. These are by default not team member facing. So unless you've given team members access to view their own profile, they're not going to see these. This is just management informational notes that we can have for team members. As you adopt additional woven features, you will see additional tabs here. So in this account, we've got schedules and policies. If you adopt Woven's learning tool, our LMS, you'll have a learning tab. Those will all just kind of show up as additional features are enabled. If we ever need to delete or terminate a team member, on the details tab, if we click this little drop down caret, we have both of those options. Our recommendation is that we use terminate instead of delete. Delete really would only have a use if somehow a team member gets added to Woven twice with different email addresses. Woven is looking at email addresses to make sure we don't have duplicate records, so it would have to be kind of a unique situation. And that would be when we want to delete team members. For terminating, what's the termination date? Reason? Are they eligible for rehire? Was it voluntary or not? And what was the last day worked? And then you can terminate them. Team members that are marked as rehirable can be rehired in Woven. Team members that are marked as no, not rehirable, if you wanted to rehire them, you can switch that rehirable from no to yes, and then you can rehire them if you need to. If a team member is deleted instead of being terminated, it would need to go to Woven's support team. They can recover that deleted record for you. And then the last thing for team members, I don't have permission to it. There's a settings button where there are some team member settings that you can go update. Sorry, I thought I had everything turned on that I should. So there are some settings that you can play with there within team members. And there's even a team member insight, so you can get some high level workforce information here as well. The next feature that we're going to look at are teams. Teams are segments of all of your team members that you will eventually be able to target communication to. So once we have teams in Woven, we can target them for chats or announcements very specifically. So we're going to look at these. Smart teams are a fairly new feature. We'll look at how we manage those, how we update team information, and then how we delete a team. And I don't have access to that. Let me give myself access real quick. Sorry. You'll see a little bit of account settings there. Anna or Lindsay, who are on the call, can you see if we have Teams turned on for JL Spa? I can also just go to a different account. Let's look at this. Sorry, let's look at this retreat day spa. So we see this account has lots of things going on here. We have more features turned on, and then there's teams there that we can look at. Lots of teams created in this fake account. If we want to add a new team, we can click the Add Team button. We can give it a name. And then we can decide, is it a manual team where we have to add team members manually, right? Or is it a smart team where team members get added automatically? So we're going to do a smart team, and because we can see both ways. The manual way is just like this without the little message here about smart teams with an add members button. If I want to add team members, I can sort by location or position. I can just search here and I can add team members to this team. Right? In settings for the smart team, though, is where I can determine who should automatically get added to this team. By location and position, we can set that up. So in this account, I only have access to one location. So I'm going to say, hey, at this location, and then by position, is it probably not everyone, right? Woven creates a location specific team that has everybody who's in the location already in it. So we wouldn't really need to recreate that. We could say, hey, this is just for managers and owners at this one location. And Woven will manage and adds those team members. We go back out to members. We see, right, I added Lindsay, but all of these other people, because they have access to the location that I selected, and they have one of those positions that I selected, they've already been added to this team. If one of these team members is removed from Woven, either by termination or by deletion, they will get removed from this team. As team members are added to Woven with this position or this location, they will automatically get added to this team as well. In settings, we can also change the color. We can add an icon for teams. So instead of just having the default, we can add an image to make our team a little bit more unique. If we need to delete a team, there is a delete button. So deleting a team cannot easily be recovered. It cannot be done quickly. So we make it very deliberate. You have to have a specific role permission. You have to come into the team. You have to hit delete. You have to type the word confirm, all caps, no quotes, before you get the little save button that deletes that team. And now that team's gone. If I needed that team again, I could just recreate it and move forward. Locations, also a very fundamental piece of Woven. It's a part that you can't update or you can't add or remove from Woven. You'll need to go through the Woven CS team. They can assist with making those updates. Once your locations are in Woven, you can make updates to them. So this is what we're going to look at. How do we review a location's general information? How do we identify some key team members? The location manager is a required field. How do we update the who to contact list and review location specific documents? And we'll also look at the location settings. So we'll just stay in this training account now. Underneath management, we're going to go to locations. In this account, I only have access to this one location, so that's all I see in this list. If I click on the location name, very similar to how we see with team members, we can open up the location details. On the General tab, we can update the name and display name. So maybe the full name has additional information. The display name is very similar to like a preferred first name. We can change that. Primary phone number, not required. Email address, not required. Address, also not required. Once we've added the address, we refresh the page, it will update this little map in our little location dot. In location management, we have the location manager. This is a required field. Every location has to have a location manager. If Lucas is being terminated, we need to identify a new manager before we can remove Lucas from Woven. Right? Woven won't let you remove somebody who is identified as a location manager. So I could say, right? You could say the new manager is Lindsay. Now Lucas's profile can be removed if necessary. These other people, right, at this location, district manager, regional manager, maintenance, facility manager, IT tech. These are not required. They can trigger some notifications if you've added them, but they are not required fields. Square footage, open date, time zone, right? You can update these. Alternate ID numbers. So if a location has an alternate ID number or a legal entity, we can make those updates. Can add an image at the location. So I obviously have a thing for Superman. All the things are Superman. But if you had like an actual location image, like a storefront, you could add that here as well. In this right-hand column, region, district, markets, I'll show you in settings where we tell Woven what terminology we use for region, district, and markets. You don't have to use them. You don't have to use all three. You can use any combination. You just have to tell Woven what your region, district, and or markets are, and then they will show up in these drop downs. And then you can also identify hours of operation. This is just informational for your team members. It doesn't connect to like schedules. It is just the operating hours for this location. On the who to contact list, these are frequently used numbers and contacts for this location. These will show up for team members in the mobile apps. So if you have things like a contact at the gas or electric company, you have a contract with a locksmith or a general contractor, somebody that the team members may need to get in contact with, you can add these. And they could be internal or external contacts, right? You may have somebody at a corporate office that gets contacted if there's a problem with the internet service. And you can just add a new contact. Who is that? Right? And we'll say internet. What's their phone number? What's their email address? What if we have like an account number? And then any notes, right? You can say, hey, you can have any kind of note there. And then that will be visible to team members via mobile. The team members tab gives you just a quick filter of team members who have access to this location. You can see people who have this as their primary location. So these are the group, or this is the group of people who have Washington as their primary location. You can also see everybody who has access to this location, regardless of what their primary location is. Site data and areas you would have to set up for some of Woven's additional features, location audits, and some of the maintenance things. Documents is where we can store documents specific to this location. So blueprints, things like third-party contracts. So if you have a window washer or a locksmith, you can add notes for them or add documents, apologies. And then changelog. So we can see who's making updates to the general tab of our location details. So you can see, hey, Lucas has made a handful of updates over the last couple of months to the manager. Either we need to have a conversation with this team member to say, hey, you're doing things you shouldn't be doing, or maybe his security role needs to be updated so that they can't do that thing that they're doing. We go back out to locations. And this is where our settings lives. This is where we can go tell Woven what our markets, districts, and regions are called, right? Can add a new one if we need to. We can come in and we can like, oh, we don't call this the East region anymore. We call it right? You can make those updates as necessary. We even have a realignment tool. So if you've updated lots of locations, you can use the realignment tool to realign a specific field in Woven. You can realign it to something else. You can choose by multiple locations. There's a preview and then an execute button if you want to continue making those updates. And then the last feature that we're going to talk about as part of Woven's foundational features is Report Center. As you adopt additional features in Woven, you'll have access to additional reports. So we're going to look at just one of my favorite reports. All of Report Center works the same way, though. So we're going to click on Report Center. And then we have a list of reports, right? Again, as we've adopted additional features, we'll get more reports. Underneath team members, there's a login activity report. Right? I can see who at my location is actually logging in regularly or at all to Woven. I do only have access to the one location, so that's all I can select. I can filter by positions and by login dates if I want. I can also just hit Run Report. So this is the report I have. I'm going to go ahead and hide this so we get more information. There we go. And if I scroll over to the far right, there are three columns here that are important. Have they downloaded the app? I see that in this fake account, none of them have. How many times have they logged in? So if anybody had logged in, I'd have a count there. When was the last time they logged in? So this will tell us the last time they actually entered their username and password, either in desktop or mobile. The last session date is the last time they interacted with Woven. So team members should not have to log in every day to Woven, right? It should be saving their information unless they are manually logging out of the mobile apps. If they're using like private browsers on desktop, if they actually log themselves out here, right? They shouldn't have to do that. And so that's the difference between the login date and the last session. The other thing we can do from these reports is schedule reports to get sent to ourselves. So based on the filters we had over here, those will show up. How frequently do I want to receive this? So we see a lot of weekly on this report specifically. I'm going to say every Monday, starting next Monday, we'll just use 12:45. If I leave the end date and time blank, I will receive it until I tell it to stop. Do I want this as Excel or PDF? Do I want to name the report something differently, which I can? And then who is it for, right? So I'm going to say this is just for me. No, guess not. I'm going to say it's for well, one of these fake people in here, right? And that person would receive this based on our cadence that we have selected. If I go to existing, I can see what we have. So there's one here for Jessica. The team member login activity report starts on Monday and runs until we tell it to stop. These reports that we've created, we can delete them. Deleted scheduled reports can't be recovered. You would just need to create a new schedule. That is our last feature to talk about today. I hope you guys found this beneficial and look forward to additional webinars from Woven in the future. Thanks. Have a good afternoon.